Professor Schlacke, Professor Messner, members of the Advisory Council, ladies and gentlemen. The 21st century will be the century of the cities. This is the finding of the 2016 flagship report of the German Advisory Council on global change. Excuse me. May I close this? Yes, huh? Okay. If that is true, and certainly no one in this room will need convincing, it means that urban development policy is one of the key areas of action for the future. That is why we have to broaden the discussion and take this topic out of its specialist niche. The challenges are massive: climate change, migration flows, and global pandemics that could spread within a short period across the entire planet. Intelligent urban development policy must reflect these issues. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to look at three areas which I consider particularly important in this context: the inclusivity of our cities, the ecological sustainability of our cities, and the digital transformation towards smart cities. I will begin, if I may, with inclusion, which I understand to be the political and economic participation of urban residents. In terms of the right to political participation, a great deal remains to be done at international level. Germany, in my view, is not doing too badly, but we still need to make further progress. For participation to work, for example, there always has to be a solid economic basis, and in many cities this basis is being eroded by rocketing rents. Adequate and affordable housing for all is in short supply. Not only cities like Munich, Hamburg, and Berlin are becoming more and more expensive. Even in medium-sized towns, a place to live is swallowing a growing proportion of disposable income. We are still seeing a national average annual rent rise for new tenants of 3.3%. Pay raises can hardly keep pace with that. Those that suffer the most are often the elderly, students, families with children, and low earners. But they are not the only ones affected by rising rents. The bottom line is that more and more people are renting their way to poverty. And this trend is extending right into the mainstream of society. So you can see that political intervention was imperative, and it has been successful. We have now completely altered course and initiated a reversal of the trend. We have reversed the trend in construction. The number of construction permits is rising, with a good 380,000 issued last year. We have trebled compensation payments to 1.5 billion euros in 2016. 70% more social housing was constructed compared to 2015. We have increased housing benefit, easing the rent burden for 660,000 low-income households. Ladies and gentlemen, we are on the right track. But of course, we cannot compare the challenges Germany is tackling with the problems facing governments in emerging and developing countries, as Professor Messner showed. Within a few decades, 2 to 3 billion people worldwide will leave rural areas and converge on cities. 90% of these people are in Asia and Africa. The problem is that the cities in those regions rarely have the necessary infrastructure even for the people who are already there. Let us not forget what you wrote in the report in sub-Saharan Africa, 2/3 of all new city dwellers currently live in slums. It is obvious that something is going wrong. That is why at Habitat 3 in Quito, we pressed for cities to be empowered to address these problems. The new urban agenda highlights that cities need the necessary framework conditions, adequate capacities, and proper funding. It also stresses that inclusive urban development must be a core goal. All countries agreed on this, and there's no turning back now. Moreover, I see the new urban agenda as also complementing the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development because it implements the SDGs at the city level. Germany's Sustainable Development Strategy boosts this at national level because we are tackling the SDGs and underpinning them with specific targets. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings me to the second issue. I would like to talk about the ecological sustainability of our cities. I'm no friend of pitting economic and ecological needs against each other. Such an approach is generally short-sighted, sometimes simply guided by self-interest. To give you an example, residents of our cities rely on adequate levels of mobility. In many places, this can be achieved with bicycles, bus and trains. However, for certain routes and activities, it is sometimes necessary to use a car. We cannot deprive people of this freedom. At the same time, city dwellers, whether they drive a car or not, have the right to breathe clean air. They have the right not to jeopardize their health through exposure to constant traffic noise. They are entitled to demand that the government protects them from the impacts of climate change and empowers cities to meet their responsibility for the climate action. To sum up, sustainable urban development policy is not a question of either or. It consistently works in parallel towards economic, ecological, and social sustainability. To achieve this, urban development policy needs clear framework conditions and appropriate funding. Over the past years, my ministry, the BMUB, and the German government as a whole have paved the way. The Paris Agreement outlines the framework for urban climate action. Germany played a key role in the negotiations. For example, we doubled our international climate finance, thus laying one of the cornerstones for the successful adoption of the agreement. This climate finance also plays a key role in bringing about a climate-friendly transformation in international urban development. In 2015, we made urban development a new focus of the BMUB's International Climate Initiative. My ministry works with the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development to implement mitigation and adaptation measures in cities in developing countries. In Germany, we adopted the Climate Action Plan 2050, which provides cities with an important framework for sustainable development. My ministry, the BMUB, actively supports this through the National Climate Initiative. Examples are funding options and support for around 40 master plan municipalities throughout Germany. I would also like to point out that the success of green tech made in Germany clearly debunks the theory that climate action costs growth and jobs. In 2016, the German market volume of the climate and environmental technology sector amounted to nearly 350 billion euros. 1.5 million people in Germany work in the lead markets green technology and resource efficiency. Green tech is thus a genuine driver of growth and employment. We support the export of German expertise with our environmental technologies export initiative. In this way, we are promoting jobs and prosperity at home, while also helping to build more sustainable economies abroad. I would call that a classic win-win situation. Ladies and gentlemen, the third issue I would like to talk about is the sustainable digital transformation of cities. There can be no doubt that the smart city is on its way. The only question is the form it will take. There are excellent opportunities, for instance, in the transport sector. Sensor technology that tells drivers via an app where to find parking place can help you reduce traffic. The same is true for traffic management. In future, traffic should not be directed by the traffic lights. The traffic lights should be geared to traffic volumes. These are just two of many examples of how the smart city can improve the quality of urban life. Alongside the advantages, however, the digital transformation also raises a number of questions concerning the protection of privacy and security. Who actually owns all the data which are generated in the smart city? How is the data collected, and who is it that collects, saves and uses the data? What does it actually cost municipalities to maintain data securely for the long term? It is important that we use policy to guide the digital transformation of cities rather than just letting it happen. To ensure this, we need to support local government. While large cities may well have the financial means and expertise to take forward-looking action, small and medium-sized municipalities could fall behind. We should avoid that. That is why we worked in the Smart Cities Dialogue platform with cities, districts, municipalities, and many other stakeholders to draw up the Smart City Charter. The Advisory Council also played an active part in this, and I would like to take this opportunity to express my appreciation for your commitment. Our Smart City Charter is the first outline of our vision for the digital city of tomorrow and what we need to do to bring it about. Ladies and gentlemen, in the past few years, we have accomplished a great deal. Nevertheless, it is evident that there are still major tasks ahead. I am therefore very pleased that the Advisory Council addressed this topic in its flagship report. I am equally pleased that the next report will focus on the digital transformation. Thank you very much for your important work, which is of enormous value for both policymakers and society as a whole. Thank you very much.